Armed and Dangerous is a 2003 third-person shooter developed by Planet Moon Studios, of Giant Citizen Kabuto fame. If you've watched my Giants video from like a million years ago, you're probably well aware of the fact that Giant Citizen Kabuto holds a special place in my heart. Giant's Edgar Wright-esque writing and cutscene direction, not to mention its asymmetrical gameplay design featuring elements from third-person shooter, RTS and brawler games, across 3 narratively connected campaigns with unique protagonists, I mean, saying Giants was ambitious would be a gross understatement. Interestingly, Giants was not the only game attempting this very particular way of pushing the boundaries of game design and storytelling. I'd go as far as to say that Giants was part of the same quote-unquote movement of late 90s, early 2000s idiosyncratic, batshit insanely creative games together with the likes of MDK 1 and 2, Sacrifice, Messiah, and yes, Armed and Dangerous. Whatever, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm just setting the stage for a future video, so just bear with me, okay? Anyways, my point was that these games have a common creative lineage, and you can kinda see how Armed and Dangerous came to be by looking back at MDK and Giants. Also, it might come as a shock that I've never played Armed and Dangerous until this video. I don't know why, it just didn't attract my attention in the same way as Giants did. But now that I have, I can safely say that it's every bit as batshit insane and funny as Giants. So before jumping in, let's fix this game because it's pretty old. All you have to do is download this nifty widescreen fix, copy the relevant files, and type in your preferred resolution in the .ini. Make sure to change the graphical settings before applying the fix, otherwise the game will crash every time you change the settings and you'll have to do everything all over again. Oh, and please, for the love of God, cap the FPS at 60. Just trust me on this one. Also, I'll let you know that I have a Twitter with lots of tweets and a Patreon where you can support the channel with real life money. Let's go.
He's freezing. We gotta warm him up or he'll die.
No problem. Here's a little trick I learned back in Kalios during the Lyme-Dixon War.
Oh, good idea, mate.
What?
I've seen this done before. He'll split open the dead beast's stomach and stick Rexus amongst the warm entrails. Should keep him warm for at least a day.
Right, I'll be off here vomiting.
No, that's not necessary. Just stick it in there.
Armed and Dangerous takes place in the fantasy world of Melola, a world which sounds like a band that should be in the real emo copypasta or an ad-lib in a trap song, depending on who you ask. 3 outcasts, Roman, Jonesy and Q, head to the wasteland to recruit a man named Rexus, a now retired powerful seer who may or may not have been an expert in magical fuckery back in his youth. The reason why they need Rexus is that they think he might be able to help them pull off the heist of the century, stealing the Book of Rule, a legendary magical book that grants immense power to whoever possesses it. Problem is, the book has a locking spell that turns it into the Book of Basket Weaving, rendering it effectively useless to those that don't know the magical combination. Meanwhile, the Wildwood monks have been trying to unlock it for years at the behest of King Forge, a villainous monarch who's hell-bent on turning Melola into a theme park for his dim-witted son Prince Stig, and you know, taking over the world. Of course, stuff happens and the 3 outcasts find themselves at the center of an ancient prophecy revolving around said book and them as the saviors of the world, or something like that. Trust me, it doesn't matter, this game is a vibe. If hearing the premise had you like, wait, that sounds suspiciously familiar, well, you were really onto something. Much like Giants, Armed and Dangerous parodies video games and other media, the difference being that this game is way less subtle about it, and in the best way possible.
It's them! You! Show me your papers!
What?
Papers!
Now you listen to me.
That's it! Prepare them for a full cavity search!
Our teeth are fine. Now stand aside.
Show me your papers, now!
You don't need to see our papers.
We don't need to see your papers.
Good. You're, quick! What should I say to them? I'm running out of power!
Vic, what should he say to us? He's running out of power.
Tell them they're both teapots.
No Scottish miners, look. Just tell them we're not the ones they're looking for.
Wait! I can handle this. You're both... French!
We surrender!
Ah!
To call Armed and Dangerous's world absurd would be an understatement. Like, even as far back as the intro cinematic, it's obvious that nobody at Planet Moon Studios took this game seriously. They set out to make a fun game and have a blast while doing it. And they really pulled it off. It's a 7-hour-long revolving door of nonsensical situations and jokes. For one, the game does not give a single fuck about maintaining even the veneer of world-building coherency and consistency. The so-called fantasy world has bolt-action rifles, submachine guns, rocket launchers, jetpacks, machine gun nests, drones, giant centurion-looking robots, right next to hobbit-like peasants living in quaint Kincaid-ass country houses, British pubs, and mild-mannered Nazgul-looking motherfuckers. Also, King Forge's infantry-level troops are half-man, half-animal grunts, totally not orcs, and the officer class is composed of uniformed humanoids with German accents. Believe it or not, I have barely scratched the surface. I'm just gonna freestyle some random bits of absurdity off the top of my head. So the trio of outcasts features Roman, an English bloke with a Cockney accent, Jonesy, a mole-man Scotsman with a penchant for explosives, and Q, a tea-loving robot centurion who became self-aware while serving in King Forge's army. In one mission, Roman drops an offhand joke about one of his drug-fueled misadventures from 74. Is he referring to Milola's year of 74 or like our world's 1974? What happened in 1974, Roman? What did you do, Roman? What did you do? There is an Elvis impersonator. The so-called Lady of the Pond is a regular lady who just so happens to enjoy taking baths in mystical-looking bodies of water. Or maybe she was the actual Lady of the Pond until the rock she got in the noggin turned her into Philomena Kunk.
Hello, nice to meet you.
What? Who?
We're here for the, great keys of,
You? You threw a rock at me?
No, I didn't! You tripped as you were coming out of the pond!
Pond? What was I doing in the pond?
Why, you live there. You are Zembeline, the great lady of the pond.
Ha! What a bunch of rubbish.
It's true. We are here for the legendary keys of Zardos.
What are you talking about? My name's Sarah Hillman from the next village. I run a homeless shelter for startled sheep. Now go and play your pathetic D&D games elsewhere. I can't even swim, you silly man.
She's been in that pond for over 2,000 years. Jonesy, you idiot!
I think I'm actually going insane. Obviously, the absurdity of this world is ripe for comedic potential, but for that, we'll have to talk about the presentation. So, in terms of presentation, Armed and Dangerous is both a step forward and a step backwards compared to Giant Citizen Kabuto. The creative and playful art direction are still there, but overall, Armed and Dangerous hasn't aged as gracefully as Giants. The biggest culprit here are the cutscenes. They look rough, especially compared to Giants, which by the way precedes A&D by 3 years. This huge quality gap is due to A&D's cutscenes being pre-rendered, while Giants, and please feel free to call me out on my bullshit in the comments if I'm wrong, are in-engine. As a result, this game's cutscenes are marred by fuck tons of compression, at least when they're running in-game. But here's the kicker, they look a lot better if run from the game's folder. So maybe the widescreen fix somehow distorted the cutscenes beyond recognition by fucking around with the resolution and I'm just a big baby. Even so, it's pretty jarring to go from Giant's crisp in-engine cutscenes to whatever this is. Still, in-engine versus pre-rendered debate aside, once the initial shock wore off, I found myself not caring that much about the compression because the voice acting and direction are just that good. For one, the voice cast is absolutely stacked and offers some of the best performances this medium has ever seen. Brian George, who you may know as Babu in Seinfeld, plays Roman, the main hero. Jeff Bennett, aka Brooklyn and Gargoyles, Dexter's Dad and Dexter's Laboratory, and Johnny motherfucking Bravo, lends his voice to the sarcastic mole Scotsman Jonesy. Finally, John Mariano, Pat Fraley, and the late Tony J play Rexus, Q, and King Forge respectively. What's up with these games and their rockstar voice casts, man? Like, Sacrifice featured Brad Garrett and Tim fucking Curry. This is insane. Anyway, let's have a listen.
We'll rendezvous at 0900 hours in the trenches. The resistance will never die.
Yes. See you then. Let's go.
More on their way. Dick Turpin village is defenseless.
We'd better...
Wait, I've got an idea.
Here's a weird one. Rexus, When we get to the plains, I want you to take the others and find the lady of the pond.
Don't tell me you believe that rubbish.
The Zardos keys are the only way into the Wildwood.
Just watch him, okay?
What about you?
Remember the old adage, attack when they're least expecting it?
Yeah?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to cause a little diversion. Keep them off your backs and away from this village.
Well, shouldn't we stick together?
The village is safe now. At least I've done some good.
What did you do?
Read all about it! Read all about it! Midding nursing home leveled! Hundreds of old age pensioners homeless!
They'll be lost for days.
Oh! Does the king's evil know no bounds?
Nursing home? Why?
Well, Turpin Village is safe for the time being. Shouldn't we get after those keys?
Of course, excellent voice acting is just one part of the equation. The writing, cutscene direction and physical comedy are just something else. I'm a big fan of comedies that use the pretentious line incoming, tools and conventions of filmmaking to convey humor. Like, as much as I like an honest-to-God raunchy dialogue-driven comedy such as Superbad or Pineapple Express or whatever, the jokes just hit different when they're accompanied by a clever edit or an impeccably timed bout of physical comedy. And trust me, despite its often pretty subversive and subtle humor, Armed and Dangerous can get pretty raunchy, like downright laugh in the back of the school bus at the word sex juvenile. It'll shift from big-brained meta-commentary that goes over your head the first time around humor to stupid blowjob jokes. And it works here because the script has a certain rhythm to it. It spaces the raunchy jokes out from each other enough so you forget about them, and when the next dick joke drops, it's all the more powerful. I don't know how to talk about this stuff, man. I just consume movies and overcompensate for my lack of filmmaking literacy by absorbing fuck tons of trivia after the fact. Wait, I do that with music too, and video games. So yeah, the cutscenes are so charming and well directed that I'd argue that the game is worth picking up just for them alone. They almost feel like a reward for completing missions. Speaking of which, let's talk gameplay.
Can you do anything with them?
I'll try. I can't promise anything.
Sorry, we're not programmed for that kind of...
Okay, soldiers, let's move out.
Good. You defend the...
I'm sorry, civilian, I can't talk now. We have a crisis here.
Wait!
Yes, keep back.
Okay, before anything, make sure to crank the mouse sensitivity all the way fuck down, otherwise the camera will start pissing and shitting itself. Cool? Cool. Okay, so at its core, Armed and Dangerous is a pretty conventional early 2000s third-person shooter. There are no cover mechanics, no skill trees with boring percentage-based progression, no weapon upgrades, nothing. You're dropped into a level and you run and gun your way through hundreds of mobs from point A to point B. It's nothing really to write home about. It's what I would have said had Armed and Dangerous not been a Planet Moon Studios creation. Ha! Gotcha! You actually fell for that, you absolute buffoons! These are the developers behind Giant Citizen Kabuto we're talking about. Please don't unsubscribe. So the game starts with a semi-automatic bolt-action rifle with infinite ammo. As far as third-person shooter weapons are concerned, you couldn't get more basic than this. It does decent damage when fired freely, but to unlock its full damage potential, you have to wait for the dynamic reticle to shrink to the appropriate size before taking a shot. You'd be forgiven for assuming this is all there is to the gunplay. However, not 5 minutes into the first mission, you stumble upon a resistance-connected pub where you get a submachine gun with a 100-round clip that cuts through fools with the surgical precision of an Elmatic-era Nosbar. This fucking thing, despite lacking any sort of recoil or strong physical feedback, feels absolutely incredible to shoot. Enemies on the brink of dying twitch and squirm and scream and drop dead with this like comical Looney Tunes ass affectation that more than makes up for the quote-unquote unrealistic gunplay. While the machine gun makes for a strong second impression, believe it or not, the game is still keeping its cards close to its chest at this point. What a cursed sentence. The second level is where the game starts officially coming into its own. Virtually everything you see is destroyable and explodable, like enemy spawn points, which take the form of these comically quaint gazebo-looking barracks, quarries, houses, and even trees. You soon gain access to a mortar, but not just any mortar, a handheld mortar, shaped like a tuba. I repeat, a tuba-shaped, handheld mortar that launches armor-penetrating explosive shells which cut through the first boss, a giant robot, like it's made of butter. There's also a rocket launcher that fires 2 and even 4 homing rockets at once if you pick up the upgrade. It's great for crowd control and wiping machine gun nests and artillery pieces from a distance. And that's just part of the story. Remember when I said that absolutely no one at Planet Moon Studios took this game seriously and just wanted to have fun by making a batshit crazy game? Well, meet a topsy-turvy bomb, a device which literally turns the world upside down, causing enemies to fall to their deaths. Then you got your throwables like the Guy Hawk's bomb, which turns enemies against each other, and the sticky grenade, which is not exactly a sticky grenade, more like a frisbee thingy that sticks to enemies. Once you attach one of these bad boys to an enemy, their friends start screaming and flailing their arms in terror. There's also the miniature black hole, which does exactly what it says on the tin, and a boxing glove that I didn't really use all that often. Still not impressed? Well, meet the land shark gun. A cannon that launches a rapidly maturing shark which burrows below the ground and snatches everything in sight. It's so powerful it feels unfair to use. There must be something in the Geneva Conventions about this weapon, and that's pretty much it as far as weapons are concerned. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Armed and Dangerous has one of the most creative weapon selections in games. It's worth mentioning that the weapons are not wacky for the sake of being wacky, nor are they exactly overpowered. Since the game is quite stingy with ammo for the more out there weapons, you need to put some thought into how and when to use them. The machine gun for putting down crowds of low-level grunts, the homing missile launcher to destroy bosses, robots and artillery, and the shark gun when you just want to have some fun. You don't carry all weapons on you at all times though, as the game has a strict free weapon carry limit, so you'll have to make the occasional trip to the pub to swap weapons. There's a surprising strategic depth to the gameplay which you wouldn't necessarily expect from a run and gun shooter such as Armed and Dangerous. Since staying in one place is effectively a death sentence, you'll quickly realize that moving from place to place and adapting your strategy on the go is the best course of action. Speaking of moving, later in the campaign you gain access to a jetpack, which really opens up the levels and increases your number of navigational and tactical possibilities. Annoyingly, the game always finds a story excuse to leave your 2 companions behind for the jetpack missions. Maybe the developers realized that designing missions around 3 jetpack-toting psychopaths was too much of a hassle and ruined the balancing. Speaking of companions, don't expect the same depth as Giants. It's not that kind of game. Other than assigning a few basic commands to your squad, there's really nothing much to it. They can die, but they'll respawn in the next mission. Also, there's no crazy, genre-subverting mission design to speak of here. At the beginning of each mission, you get 3-4 objectives, which basically boil down to destroying X number of enemies or specific buildings, or escorting Y number of peasants. This game's version of Smarties back to their houses. By the way, just look at how the peasants are following you. They're literally just barely functioning chunks of floating ragdoll physics, as if someone at Planet Moon Studios was banging their head against the desk trying to get that thing to work until a manager caught a glimpse of their monitor and exclaimed, "You son of a bitch, this is the most genius thing I've ever seen. Your bonus is in the mail." And then they went about their business blissfully unaware of the reality of the situation. Where was I? Oh yeah, occasionally the game will throw in these base defense missions, which are surprisingly decent actually. I'm not a big fan of turret sections, especially when they're shoehorned into a game that has no business having them. Looking at you, Metro Last Light and KOTOR, but in Armed and Dangerous's case, they're very smartly integrated. You get a machine gun with infinite ammo, a mortar, and a huge open space filled with explosive barrels. At certain points, a plane will parachute supplies like health packs, limited special mortar rounds that do truckloads of damage, and even some new explosive barrels in case you were a bit too enthusiastic in your pyrotechnic ventures. Also, I'll let you know that the turret is mounted on rails, meaning it's perfectly, definitively, unequivocally movable. I wish I'd known this before the final mission. As I always say, your boy Mark ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. Now, despite showering the game with praises for the past, I wanna say 5 hours, Armed and Dangerous is not without its flaws. My first issue with the game has less to do with the gameplay itself and more with how the missions are presented. I don't know how to verbalize this complaint and it's such a small thing, but basically when you complete a mission, you're hit with this blurb of text and taken straight to the mission end screen. It feels half-baked. Even a quick Looney Tunes style fade to black would have been better. It actually might have fit the game's vibe like a glove now that I think about it. My second issue has to do with the repetitive nature of the missions. As I mentioned earlier, most missions use the same handful of objective types with small variations. Like one mission will have you save X number of peasants and destroy Y number of bullseye houses, the next involves saving X number of peasants and destroying Y number of enemy types, and so on. This is not necessarily bad, but I wish there was more variety. To the game's credit, it does make an honest attempt at mixing things up, like that mission where you have to cross the first area alive before finding the jetpack, or the one where you have to prevent the king's forces from destroying all the houses in the village. But other than that, it's mostly the same old. Let me put it this way, when the finale of your game is a turret mission, you know you have a problem. And that's pretty much it for this video. Armed and Dangerous is definitely not the innovative, genre-subverting masterpiece that Giants was, and it doesn't really have to be. If you've already played Giants and you're fiending for a quick Planet Moon Studios fix, Armed and Dangerous is probably your best bet. It's charming, extremely funny, and a joy to play thanks to its arsenal of absolutely insane weapons. They just... and I don't want to be one of those guys, but they just don't make them like this anymore. Thanks for watching. As always, a huge thank you to my wonderful patrons whose generosity makes these videos possible. I'll see you next time.